Hey, welcome to the Business Leadership Series. Derek Champagne here. This is an exciting episode for me because I am in New York City and I am with a former guest of the Business Leadership Series, a friend of the show, Yannis Moati. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. It's an honor. It's a pleasure.
You set up this space, so before we get into anything else, I want to thank Workville. You can go to workvillenyc.com. This is an amazing facility. A great co-work space if you're looking for an affordable, high energy, very cool spot. It's got 3 outdoor terraces, 20th and 21st floor here on Broadway in Midtown.
Yep.
So Yannis, Hotels by Day. We had you as a guest. You were on Shark Tank.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my favorite interviews I did. You're really honest and open about the growth that you have, the challenges. You were honest about the challenges you're having with growing your business. And that's always a lead indicator for me of somebody that you can learn from. Because as I've had 8 companies, 4 have failed, 4 have done right. Okay. And so I understand that if you can learn from somebody else, that's one of the reasons we do this show.
Thank you so much. So, I'm happy to share.
Give us a quick recap of who you are, hotelsbyday.com, and then I want to talk about some progressions that happened for you in the last year.
Sure. So about 20 years in the business now of travel. I was a tour guide when I was a teenager for American tourists traveling to Europe. Okay. And then I moved on to become a travel agent, and then I stepped up to become a tour operator. So I did the natural progression. And during those 3 steps, those 3 professional steps, I was asked a couple of times, or more than a couple, actually many times, I was asked for a room for a few hours so that our guests could shower, change, work in privacy, just take a nap maybe before they move on to their European tour. And it was harder than pulling teeth to get those rooms for the day. Even though we as travel agents and tour operators, we handed over so many bookings to that same hotel that was just picking up the phone to call them and talking to the general manager and say, hey, give me 2 rooms. I've got 4 or 5 customers. They just landed way too early. They need a place to take a break before they take on their car or they drive to Tuscany or whatever it is from a Milan arrival. And no, it was just not possible. I was like, I don't know, I might need those rooms. So I realized that they don't have the protocols and they don't have the technology to be able to just plug into a system, assign those rooms for the day without inflicting any pain to their overnight stays, which is their bread and butter.
Right.
And so, and to step back for a second, as a tour guide, I knew those rooms existed because, I drop a customer to a museum visit, I would go back to the hotel to plan the day as a proper tour guide should do. And I remember walking hallways of hotel rooms that were completely empty during the day. Wow. So I was telling the GM, I was like, come on, don't give me that BS. I know you're handing over, you have about 15, 20 rooms just on the 5th floor that could be assigned, and yet it was impossible. So something had to be done.
Wow. So a lot of people have the idea, and I think we've talked about this, but I still want to go over it again because several of our listeners are listening in to see if they want to take the plunge into entrepreneurship. So they're listening to see, some of us have been cowboys about it. We go out there and we just do it, but like I said earlier on, I've learned the hard way on some things. Yeah. It's one thing to have an idea. Lots of us have ideas. It's another thing to execute on it. That to me is execution is everything. Once you have the idea and you understand what you're going to do. What made you decide, if you hadn't had other companies but you understood the business, what made you decide to tackle this beast? Because you really are pioneering a whole new category.
What made me decide is complete innocence. If I knew it, I'm not so sure. I would have thought twice about it. Complete innocence, thinking that there's an opportunity, and when there's an opportunity where something is not being met properly in the marketplace, somebody's got to do something about it. Now, it turns out I'm not the pioneer in this model because I've seen some models of that sort in Europe. Okay. There's about 2-3 companies that started doing this before the American solution came about, ours. Okay. And so me being, traveling so frequently between America and the United States, and being in hospitality and being in travel, I identify those companies as the potential opportunity. But unfortunately, what the European companies did is, maybe because there's less of a taboo over there, they just reinforced the idea of what a day room was. The kind of the inheritance and the heritage of that day stay, of a room with flexibility for the day, used to be something that the connotation of it was a little bit of a romance activity and not necessarily something else. But I understood, with the European background, that I saw what was going on over there, that something was being created, but yet, 20 years in the States as well, studying in the States as well, having, I guess, a business-minded opportunity, or seeing that business flows a lot smoother in a way, than in Europe, where people are on the go. Entrepreneurship is much bigger here as an opportunity, and so seeing that there was this business component that was not being catered properly, I thought that it had to be reformulated towards business travelers, towards vacationers, towards a higher level of experience for a day stay than what was usually the niche of it. Which, by the way, pardon me, it comes with the territory. We're selling hotel rooms, okay, night or day stays. Comes with the territory that there might be a romance to it. So I don't want to say that we don't, dabble in this.
Sure.
It comes with it, but we have done a sincere effort, and a good effort actually, because it's being successful, in moving it away from its old niche and into something that's much more on demand, that fits today's society.
That's how it feels to me. I was a customer this week before our interview here, and I've got meetings in the city here, and so I needed a spot to go. And I booked. I told you that. You were gracious. You treated me like a VIP. You took care of me, and thank you for that.
Sure.
I walked in. They didn't bat an eye. They had it all ready to go. You figured out a solution for them here.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was a great solution for me that I needed, because I needed a spot to be in to work from the day and get ready for my next meeting. So awesome. It gave me a central spot, a headquarters to have. So love it. And you know what? It seems from looking at the website, from the booking experience to everything's very highbrow. It's very professional. And I love what you're doing.
Thanks.
So
I love what you're doing.
Well, thank you. So I contacted you and said, hey, let's chat again. I'm in town. And you were very gracious to stop by. Thank you. You helped us set up this meeting space too, which is awesome, for a few other interviews we're doing. Thank you.
Sure.
And I want to ask you, when I talked to you, you said, hey, we've had some great growth. This month alone have been record numbers. So we know you've had a journey, and I'm going to link back to your last episode, because when you were there, and this is the mindset I want to go to for a minute. When you were there, you were brutally honest with me. And I really appreciate that. And I believe in the Stockdale paradox, which talks about be brutally honest about where you are. Don't tell yourself lies. Because but then have a vision for where you're going. And when you combine those two, if it's a good idea, you can get there. Especially when you know where to put your time and resources. But your mindset last time was hopeful. And it was saying, man, I've learned some things the hard way, but here I am, and I've just we're going to stick it out, we're going to do this. So what's happened? What's your mindset now? Because you've had a lot of growth. What's been the transition for you?
I'm happy to say that a lot stronger in my mindset, a lot more comfortable with where we're going. Our trajectory is a lot more hopeful than it was a year ago, a year and a half when we last interviewed. Nonetheless, this is not comfortable times. It still is very, very challenging. About the honesty part, I thank you very much for saying this, because I feel like an alien, not in citizenry, but an alien in terms of emotional alien, as in, it's very strange. I see what's going on in the startup community, and everybody's posting about things, and you scratch a little bit, and there's nothing there. What are you talking about? But yet, I don't know, I guess it's a sales pitch, right? I mean, it sells. I'm brutally honest with everything. I'm very transparent as well, for good or bad. It has bit me back a couple of times, but that's my MO, modus operandi. I like to be transparent. And so to get back into what's the situation, what's the position of Hotels by Day right now, well, I guess we more than doubled the sales since we last talked in the last year. So I'm very confident that our path is, for the next 5 years, it will be a slow progression. I'm saying it's slow because it's not as quick as VCs commend it. They want to see that hockey stick. We're on a 22% quarter-to-quarter base stick. So it's not hockey, it must be another game. And so, but I'm very pleased with this, because look, I understand that to change the mentality in hospitality takes time. This is many people when we launched, it's like, oh, you're the Uber of this. And no, we're not the Uber of anything. Uber came in and communicated their opportunity to 1,000 drivers. And, without being disrespectful or demeaning in any way, but when you talk to a driver and say, hey, we'll change your schedule, it might be less complex than talking to a structure like a hotel that comes in with, a millennia of doing things their own way, because it's a very old industry, lodging, right? It's possibly the second oldest industry, because after the first one you had to find a place to stay.
That's right. Yes. That's good.
So it's been there with protocols set up for a long time. It's been there with a staff structure that's been educated and formatted in a certain way. Brands, protocols and rules and guidelines that's been telling them strictly what to do. And there's a chain of command that is very, very powerful, very strong. And so here we are coming in, happy-go-lucky, saying, your night stay business, yeah, that's nice, but we can do something else and we'll flip that whole structure around. So, there's resistance there.
Sure.
So I want to do it progressively. I want to do it step by step with our partners, without coming in and saying, I'll disrupt your business. We don't want to hear this.
I love that. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you again for the honesty. I appreciate it. That's how we all learn.
Sure.
And if you can be honest with us, and I can be honest with others, that's how we're going to help each other all grow as entrepreneurs.
I believe so too.
How patient are VCs when they don't see the hockey stick?
Oh, no, not at all.
I knew they were going to say that.
No, we just tell us, just turn around, and get the hell out of here. I've had all sorts of conversation, and I must say, some of the lowest moments in my life, at least as an entrepreneur, has been conversation with VCs. They're brutal. They are, I find them to be single-minded, a little bit too narrow. If it doesn't fit the proper patterns of what they'd like to see, where, when, how, then they just reject it without, trying to figure out really what type of company, what type of situation are you faced with, what type of company are you building, what type of person that you are. This is your first big venture startup, well then screw it, I don't want to deal with you. You need to be on your fourth one. It was like, hello, we're successful already, we're doing something here.
Sure.
So they're absolutely geniuses, all of them. I think they're absolutely fantastic. But sometimes, unfortunately, a little bit too narrow in their sight. And so I know they will come around once we fit, the third check mark. So I was like, okay, so we're good there.
Right, that makes sense.
Fine, we'll wait.
So this is the business leadership series, so we have to talk about leadership. What are some things that you've learned in the last couple of years as an entrepreneur this way? What stands out to you as maybe some personal leadership growth? For me, I feel like every few months I go, wow, I wish Derek 3 months ago I had known what I know now. Maybe it's a dose of humility, maybe it's I have the right mentors. Anything stand out to you in the last 3 months, 18 months, whatever it is, that has shown you that have been aha for your personal growth as a leader?
Yeah. Lately, and just like you said it, every 3 months you kind of say to yourself, I wish I knew this before.
Right.
And so I think you asked me a similar question, if I recall, a year ago.
Yeah.
And at that time it was communication, it was transparency, it was trying to be as honest as possible, which is something that I do naturally. So I guess I must have just played on the fact that, that's what I'm doing right now, but that's what I've always been doing. But I think a major change in the last 6 months or so, 6 to 8 months, has been my lifestyle changes. Making sure that I wake up with the sunset and going to sleep, as soon as sunrise and then the sunset, pardon me. So being a lot more diligent with my eating, with my exercise as well, trying to exercise every morning. And I feel that it has switched also my thinking and trying to catch your thought, your thinking, because we all have too much chatter in our boxes right there. Right. And I see that this whole holistic view and this approach of what I eat, how I live, how I do exercise without pushing it. I'm not buff, but just doing a little bit of exercising my body, trying to limit also the intake, the food intake, because being an entrepreneur and being busy and having an email and you eat just like eating halfway through sending an email, none of that. I'm trying to eat less, I'm trying to exercise slightly more, I'm trying to sleep a little bit more. I turn off my alarm in the morning, so I will wake up whenever I need to wake up, and turns out I wake up naturally now at around 5:40, 6:30, around, depending how much.
That's a nice way to wake up.
Yeah, no more alarms, no more stress, and trying to do it in my own way, and also stripping away the stress of the VCs, the stress of the investors, the stress of this. It's like, chill out. You have to do it at your own pace. Every single email will at some point get answered. We'll get there, but we need to chill out. And I think, trying to control your thinking, which I guess the next step is meditation. But I feel like I'm not there yet. So maybe, the next interview next year we'll talk about it. But
it's great advice. I love it.
It catches you in that moment of thinking with bad thoughts or negative thoughts or downward thoughts and thinking that you're not worth it, you're not smart enough, because this flies around my head all the time. And saying, okay, move away because I've got better things to do. I've got business to take care of.
We all have those voices in our head.
Yeah.
The best people do, the lowest, everybody does. We all do.
I guess so.
And it's how we manage that.
Yeah.
But I like that you're taking these steps for your personal health, for your personal development, because I think it's important we enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
And a lot of times entrepreneurs, we're not happy until we get to the next step, and then the next step, and when we get to the next step, we're like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
And I've had my wife had to tell me, Derek, stop and enjoy it. Do you see what you just tackled?
I know.
And you wanted to tackle those things you did. And I'm like, great, but now I've got these 6 other things. And so to be able to stop and focus on your health and to do those things that are personally important to your own orbit, I think are critical. That's great advice.
Agreed.
Hey, we've got a few minutes left here. I want to talk about, you told me about some things that you're doing, 50% less spent in marketing, reduction in customer acquisition costs.
Oh.
Ooh, that gets people listening that are in business and going,
Sure.
what?
Yes.
Tell us about some of that.
Okay. Well, it's the continuation of learning about how your business ticks, and sticks. And realizing that the further digging we do, the further we realize that we actually are acquiring the same customer again and again and again. And I was like, oh, wait a second, And so with more time, you realize what you're doing, and you readjust the levers. And it turns out one sure way of readjusting everything is to turn it back to zero, right? And that's what we did. And then we realized that our continuity and our projection is still going up. And so we put a pause on everything and we just tested the waters. And it's not so crazy. It's a nice smooth transition. So we're now readjusting our levers of investing in SEM, which is search engine marketing, the Google keyword conversion, essentially. So we're doing it in different places at different moments with a customer that we are almost 100% sure that this is a new customer. Because I'm willing to spend as much money as needed for a new one, but I really don't want to spend this money again on the same customer again and again. And unfortunately, that was part of the process that we had before.
That's great advice. A lot of people start something and then they just let it keep going.
Yes.
They don't measure it. In my book, I talk about PETMAG: plan, execute, track, measure, adjust, grow.
Yes.
And if you're not in that, if you're not in that continuous cycle, things aren't always going to run on autopilot. And you can be doing things very inefficiently. So if you go back and look at it and start, what did you say, to turn back to zero?
Yeah, the dial.
Yeah, that's so smart.
So to go back to our last show, we had a very dangerous time in this company. After a year of launching the company, we had a path of sorrow, a walk of sorrow, whatever you call it. But it was a moment in which so many VCs that rejected us. The attraction was still not there. We didn't know where we were going to get the next customer or the next buck, and we were late on payments on everything and all that stuff. And at that moment, the founding team had to look for other jobs. And so I found myself alone, literally in my office, absolutely nobody. And so you know, it took us a little bit of time to readjust a lot of things. And one of those last readjustments, the last ones, is the fact that, you know, the marketing seemed to work. You know, we were getting more and more customers, and the conversion was happening at some point. And so I didn't touch it for such a long time. I just let the professionals take care of it until I realized that actually, you know, the extra sight and oversight of the CEO, the person that kind of has this holistic approach on everything, makes sense, because the professional will see, oh, okay, there's progression here, and we need to invest more money into it. So I followed their advice, but it turns out it might have not been the best advice. Not that they're doing things wrong. You need to see things differently.
Sure, and you're the only ones who look at it the way you do.
That's right. I mean, you do have the marketing component, the financial components, this component, the repeat customers component, everything you need to put into that, steer into that part. And for a long time, I didn't want to touch the marketing, because just like a junkie, you know, I was like, oh, I'm going to put more money, I'm going to get more customers, but you need to know how to stop.
Yeah, that's great advice. Tell me why, and I always like to go into mindset, I'd like to go back to mindset often for entrepreneurship, because I've had highs and lows. After a decade, after going into our 11th year of business in January, we had one of our biggest hits we've ever had.
Congratulations.
So I had to go, biggest hits down. So I had to go.
Even years, 11 years in business.
Yes, thank you. After a decade, I had to go, wait, so we have to relook at this thing after a decade. I mean, I should be past that. And I had to go back and look at things, and we were still growing, still a lot of large numbers to deal with, but I had to go back and look at things almost from the very beginning and say, where's my passion? Why are we doing what we're doing? Who are we really servicing? Is the value still there? Do we need to make a pivot? We made a major pivot in the first quarter, major, after a decade. And so that mindset is so important of why we keep going. After having the troubles that you did, and then you find yourself as the only one in the office, why continue with that direction? You can do anything you want to do.
You said it. You said the magic word, passion. Yeah. Passion. And I must say, I was cheating a little bit, because I was actually taking the calls of the customers calling, as well as taking some emails, because I was customer service as well at some point, right? And my cheating component was the fact that customers called or emailed to thank us for saving their day and improving their day where they least expected it. They had a room for the day that they could check in at a wonderful hotel. And so I was like, they want this. I see it. It's happening. I just couldn't give up on them.
I love that. I love that passion. Love it. It's the allure to me of entrepreneurship. Is seeing the spark of others that have that kind of great determination. And I'm with you on that. I'm the same way with mine. I fell in love after a decade. Fell in love with what I do. In love, and so focused, such with the vision and how to get there. And so it's encouraging to see that. So encouragement with you too is I wanted you to see you do your decade. Yes. And now we're planning things for a decade too. Yeah. But we had to reignite that passion, that spark, and that purpose to do that. So hey, give me any other final thoughts you want to share, and then I want to give a plug for Hotels by Day again. So.
Sure. Final thought is the journey is just wonderful. It's a tough journey. It's tough than nails. You know, it's you're going to be, you know, eating a lot of, you're going to be taking in a lot of problems. You're going to be overwhelmed by the problems and by the challenges. But yet the journey is absolutely wonderful. And so I think it should be, if possible, on everybody's experience at some point, that they do something, that they create something on their own, however small, big, sideways, whatever, you know, start up, start flat, start down, whatever you want to call it. It's worth that journey to experience your full potential. Faced with adversities, you know, how much you can create, how much you can solve problems, and you'll be surprised, you'll be amazed. Everybody has that potential. And well, unfortunately, you know, maybe education, maybe the formatting of your previous generation and parenting sometimes does not allow us, it puts us in shame, and it does not allow us to just break it up and just try your best. And so, I think the entrepreneurial journey is absolutely phenomenal and worth a shot for everyone.
I agree with you. It's alive and well, and we're seeing it here on these two massive floors in this building right now. Such great energy. I'm looking around and see people working everywhere on their next big project and next idea. It's so exciting. Great spot to do this interview today. Give us, for our customers who might be your customers, tell them what they can expect from your team, from the experience with hotelsbyday.com.
So the current expectation, or the current experience, or the future one?
Give us the future one.
Okay. Thank you. The future one is that we'd like to think that we will be the mini Expedia one day, right? Because we are I call it mini, but however you want to describe it. But it's basically being able to optimize this niche of half-day stays for customers, and so at hotels with the experience of a hotel and all that. And so we're growing to become one. But what we are identifying right now is the fact that lodging owners, apartment owners, have experienced the same problem in terms of revenue optimization, in terms of gap that they don't know how to fill it. And so we're moving on to become the mini Expedia plus the mini Airbnb, because we are creating those tech solution and protocols to be able to solve all lodging solutions for the day. And so that's our future out there, and hopefully, within the next year we'll get there. But one step at a time.
Awesome, love it. Yannis, hotelsbyday.com. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Derek.
Look forward to spotlighting the next things you're doing. You're doing a great job.
Would love it, and always a pleasure listening to your podcast. And
thank you.
And keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
You're all here to support us, so thank you so much.
That's the job. Spotlight you guys.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks, buddy.